So welcome back. In this video we are going to be looking at the main sub routine in the program. So I'm just going to go through this, go through how the program is structured in this sub, and later on we'll go into detail in each specific procedure or function. So notice right at the top here we have a constant being declared, so we have board dimension. This is declared as 8 and pretty self-explanatory, that's just how big the board is. You can change it, although it does mess around with how the board displays when you play the game. So now that's out of the way, we'll get right into these variables. So first we have dimension board dimension, comma board dimension as string. So what this does is it declares a two-dimensional array of size 8 by 8, because we're using the constant here to declare that array. So that's actually 9 by 9 because we start at 0 in computing for some reason, but for all intensive purposes it's 8 by 8 and we use the values from 1 to 8 in each direction. So when we're dealing with this variable we have the rank number, which if you remember is vertically along the board. We have the rank in the first slot and the file in the second slot. So that's across the board. So that's all that. It's declared as a string because we have two characters in each square of the board, so we have to declare it as a string to hold those characters. Next one is a simple Boolean for game over, so this is just to see whether you've won the game or not yet. So that can be true or false. Then we have quite a few things with start and finish at the start. So start square and finish square, that is the input which the user puts in when they're trying to move a piece. So we put in two numbers and those are then converted into the file and rank which that's referencing to using some clever maths I'll get into later. So the start file, the start rank, and the finish file, finish rank. So those all determine the coordinates of the piece you're trying to move from and to. Then we have another Boolean, so that's a true-false statement. We have move is legal, and that's just for when we're trying to find a move that we don't try and do a move which isn't legal, because otherwise the game would just be rubbish and you could move anything anywhere. Then we have a few character variables. We have play again, which is at the end of the game, so it's just wondering if you want to play the game still, if you want to play another game when you finish one. And then we have the sample game, so that's used quite early on just to see if it should set up the sample game or set up a normal game which has all the pieces in the right places. Then we have quite an important character variable. We have whose turn. So this is either W or B to represent white or black for each side. And basically what this does is it switches from one to the other every time a turn is taken. So all the conditions stuff change depending on whose turn it is. So now that we've got all those variables out of the way, let's go into this first loop. So we have a do here, which means that we have a loop which is starting here, and this actually contains the entire sub and ends right here at the bottom. It says loop until play again is less than and greater than y. So in VB.NET this means loop until play again is not equal to y. So right before the game starts we see it says play again equals y. So it's saying we want to play this game. And so it'll run everything in here, and then if play again is still y, it'll just run it again, and so on and so on. But if it's not y, then the sub will end and the program will just close. So that's the big loop, which is containing the whole thing. And then within that we have a couple of bits. So we have this first section which basically sets up the game, asks if you want to play a sample game, which we discussed earlier, and if it does, it initializes the board, puts the pieces where they should be on the board. And then we have another do loop, so we have a do loop within a do loop. This will get worse, I promise. And that one is to loop until game over. So it doesn't quite make sense, this statement, loop until game over. But what that really means is loop until game over is true. So remember that is a Boolean variable from up here. So yeah, Boolean can either be false or true. And just before that do loop, it's set as false. So the game isn't already over before it begins. That's a good thing. So if the Sarrum is captured in a move, then game over will be set to true, and that loop will end, and it'll ask you if you want to play again. So within that loop, we have some simple stuff for each turn. We have display board, which it shows the board. Then we display whose turn it is, so you know who needs to be taking the turn. And move is legal is set to false. So that's just to make sure that we don't accidentally get some false positives on the move, so we move pieces where they shouldn't be going. Because that's the purpose of this next do loop, which is to loop until move is legal. So that's loop until move is legal is true. So the whole point of this loop is to find a move which is valid and illegal in the game. So we have get move, which obviously gets the move from the player. It gets those two-digit numbers to reference a square. And this is the clever maths I was talking about. So what this does is, for the start rank, remember we get the file first in that two-digit number and the rank second. So in VB.NET there's a function called mod, and in quite a lot of other languages there is as well, but it might have a different symbol. So what mod does is mod finds the remainder when you divide one number by another. This is back to primary school maths. So say we have a number, start square is, I don't know, 38. So if we divide 38 by 10, obviously we get 3.8. You probably know that by A level. If you don't, I'm worried. But in primary school, the way we would think about this is we'd say, how many 10s can I fit into 38? And we'd say, we can fit 3 in. But then how many do you have left over? You have 8 left over. So this is very clever, because what this does is it finds the second number, because we know the first number is a multiple of 10. And so doing mod 10 finds the second number, so it finds how many more than that 10 we have. The next one is start file equals start square divided by 10. This is equally clever as mod 10, but what this does is it uses the way computers treat integers. So an integer can't be a decimal point, it can only be a whole number. And so when we divide a number by 10, and we have a remainder, so it technically goes to 3.8, but because of the way the computer handles the number, it rounds it down every time. So if we have 38 and we divide it by 10 in a computer, we get 3. Exactly 3. And so, in the file, which is the first number we get 3, and we get the rank of 8. So that's some relatively simple but very clever maths, which has been used to just pass that input and get the information we need from it. And then we have this dreaded line here. Move is legal equals check move is legal, and it passes that function all of these parameters, which is crazy, and that will have an entire video to itself because that is a lot of stuff to get through. And it has a simple condition here which says if the move isn't legal, tell the user, so it says that is not a legal move, please try again, and then it'll loop that little do loop and ask you for another move. So once that's done, we check whether the game is over. So we say game over, check if game will be won. Very long function name. And what this basically does is check if the Sarrum has just been taken by this function, this move. And then it makes the move, so it actually moves the piece into the square afterwards. And if it did take the Sarrum here, then it will display the winner, and it is past whose turn, so it knows who won, and ends the game. But if it doesn't, then it will change whose turn it is using this little function. So if it's white's turn, then it'll be black's turn next, and if it's black's turn, so else, then it'll be white's turn next. And then that just loops until the game ends. And then we have another little question here, says do you want to play the game again, and gets the input and then uses that in the do loop. So that's basically the structure of this subroutine. So we have variable declaration here, we have a few variables assigned, we ask whether we want to play a sample game or not, and then we create the board and put the pieces where they should be, display it, and then get moves, get the move which the user wants to do, then make the move, change whose turn it is down here, and then this loops again and again, so it displays the board, gets the move, makes the move, changes whose turn it is. Displays the board, gets the move, makes the move, and then just changes whose turn it is. And this will just loop and loop and loop and loop until you close the program or the Sarrum is captured. So that's the basic structure of this subroutine, and in the next video we will go through some of the functions and procedures that are called from this subroutine, and eventually we'll get through the whole program. So see you in the next one.